Good evening and welcome to January's meeting of the Steering Committee of the Rutherford County Government. I call this meeting to order, and for the reading and approval of the minutes, I call on Vice Chair Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've reviewed the minutes. I find them in order and make a motion that we approve as presented.
You have a motion. Is there a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. We have three items on our agenda this evening. The first is to discuss our consent agenda. As you may remember, we had discussed this last month, and on your iPad you will see a proposed motion. I'm going to call on Commissioner Robert Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last month I was thinking of ways to make our meetings more efficient and to save time and resources. And one of those was to create a consent agenda to include the non-controversial matters of our meeting, things like the easements and grant requests and so forth. And at our last steering meeting, of course, we decided to push this off a month and let the county attorney draft a proposal for us, and that's what we have before us tonight. I read through it. I think it's a really good job. There is one little small thing that I would like to suggest that we change on that, but by and large, I think it's very well done. Instead of it saying that the county mayor has the authority to put those items on the agenda, I would suggest that we make that the commission chairman, because if in the future the county mayor is not the chairman of the commission, it seems logical that person would be the one that would be responsible for creating our agenda for us. And then also, while we're amending our commission rules, I was going to suggest that we look at ways to make our minutes preparation a little bit more streamlined and easy for the county clerk's office. Of course, Mr. Spence prepares the minutes, and then he also prepares what's called our digest, and the digest is just a very, very brief summary of what happened at the meeting. It doesn't say what was debated and how the votes came out and so forth. It just simply says that item such and such was approved. And he sends the digest to us by email. And so I was going to suggest that instead of him having to create the digest, that he could just simply email us the minutes. 20 years ago, when postage was the only way to distribute these things, it made sense to have a very short synopsis of what happened at the meeting sent out to the commissioners. That could be done with one stamp. If you had to send out 50 pages or 100 pages by mail, it would cost a lot of money. But now, all we have to do is click send on email, and he can send us the minutes. And now, I talked to Mayor Burgess today, and he said that his office really likes having the digest, and it makes their job easier. So I'm not sure what way is the best way to go with it. I think the ultimate goal was to get the minutes in our hands so that we could all review those. Since we're the ones that are voting and making the decisions, I would personally like to be able to review those. So Mr. Spence is here, and he had said he's available to answer any questions that we might have for him. And I just wanted to ask a couple of things so we can possibly include this with our decision. Is he?
Mr. Spence, would you like to come to a microphone, please?
Yes, sir. I'm Rick Spence with the County Clerk's Office, and just as Commissioner Stevens summarized, those are exactly the things we do and have been doing for a very, very long time, and we would be glad to continue that. However, we bow to the wishes of the Commission and to the Mayor, and would be happy to entertain any thoughts that you might have in streamlining government, and especially the clerk's office where we're concerned. But I know that the clerk, Lisa Kroll, has had a couple of very good ideas thrown at me this last week since you called us, Commissioner Stevens, and would be happy to share those with you if you would like. Okay, the clerk, you want to come on up? If you don't mind.
That's fine.
Well, the ideas that we've had as far as concerning the minutes, and they can be very lengthy and long and take up a lot of space via email to each and every commissioner. The ideal is, why don't we put it in the SharePoint? Therefore, it will handle it. I have spoken with our OIT department, and it can handle it. And that way, you all, if you choose, can go in there and read those at length versus using the digest. The digest does have a need. It doesn't take very long for it to be prepared. So that's the idea that we have that would help you in what you're trying to do. So, I mean, if you got any questions, I'd be glad to answer it.
Is to put the digest together, is that time consuming or just?
Well, by the rules, we have 5 days to get it completed. However, it wouldn't take a day. They could be ready the next day. But it gives us the opportunity to still wait on the customers that come in and work on the digest in between. So no, it's not that lengthy. But again, it's just a short version of what has taken place at the last county commission meeting versus someone having to go through and read such a large file. So the SharePoint just really seems to be a really good idea. So.
I think that's a very reasonable idea. In fact, all of our other documents that we use to vote on before the meetings are now on the SharePoint, and those can be accessed by anybody in the public as well. So the minutes could also be reviewed by the public easily that way instead of having to come in and ask for the hard copy of those. So I think that's a reasonable idea. Mayor Burgess, does that work for you? Yes, sir. Okay.
So you wouldn't require any action from us to put that on the SharePoint?
Not that I'm aware of. You
Okay.
just have to agree that that's what you all would want us to do.
I think that we agree. Okay.
Well, then, you want us to start with when the last minutes were completed?
Fine. Okay. Hey, thank you so much. Any questions, else?
Mr. Chairman, shouldn't that be voted on by the full commission?
Well, I think that what she was referring to, that the fact that she's going to put them on the SharePoint doesn't require any action. Anything else? Okay, thank you very
I
much.
do think that we need to change our rules to say that it's put on the SharePoint because right now it says that the county clerk shall compose the minutes and keep them on file at the clerk's office, along with the video.
I would like to add that, you know, for brevity, given the digest is a brief of everything that took place, some of the things that transpired from the time your commission meeting takes place, we have to have a sharing of thoughts with the mayor's office. We send the digest in draft form to their office, and his great staff, Vicki Taylor, reviews those along with the mayor, and that's probably more time-consuming for him, especially since it's a rather mundane document, as you've already indicated. Again, the clerk had another thought that she will probably go over with the mayor. Perhaps even he could involve the deputy to the mayor in doing that instead of him doing it. She was sharing that with me today. Again, thinking about efficiency, especially where the mayor's concerned. But that other document, the minutes document, is so very large, and that also must go before his hands before it gets into the Chairman Pro Tem's hands, and we do send that one-time document, that large document, via email to the Chairman Pro Tem, Commissioner Phillips. Again, it's just sort of the mayor, of course, likes to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and we wouldn't have it any other way either. So there is a process that takes place during that 5-day period and then the 2-week period for the actual minutes to get consumed by the general public and by the county commission. So efficiency is critical to our office, to all of county and state government, and we want to do whatever your wishes are and would be pleased to take this thing on and make it even better for you guys. But at any rate, we do serve you, and we're proud to do that, and want to thank you for your time. Do you have other
So
questions?
14 days is enough time then to get the minutes?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And again, if the clerk tells me what to do and her staff what to do, and it agrees with the mayor's office, and then, of course, ultimately you, the commission, we'll be glad to do it in any shape, form, or fashion that takes, and it'll get done, and it'll get done properly.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
I think just as a matter of clarification, if we would let this group here recommend that we change the Commissioner's Handbook under Rule 4 for minutes where both the Legislative Digest and for the minutes of the commission, that it also make an addition that we will post those documents, both of them, on the SharePoint.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens, would you like to present that motion along with the consent agenda?
I would. I would move that we approve the consent agenda as prepared, with the exception of changing county mayor to county commission chairman, and also to change the rule section of to change the minutes section of our commission rules to require the clerk's office to have the minutes on the SharePoint site within 14 days of the meeting.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Second item on our agenda this evening is to discuss the sale of surplus Sheriff's Department vehicles to other county. I'll call on Mayor Burgess.
Is our sheriff not with us? Here he comes.
Okay, I'm
We-
sorry.
We
Call
need
the
him to
sheriff also.
present this.
Want to do this. Since we don't have any direct path of where we start, we figured we start here with this. But talking with the county attorney's office, we've had several counties that have asked us about possibly buying some of our surplus vehicles. It took us a while to research it. We found out that there is a state statute for that. I had the county attorney's office draw this up, so wanted to bring it to y'all so that you can take it to the full commission, hopefully to vote on it, to allow us to do it. And then when we do it, we will still have to come back to the commission to sell these vehicles to another county, and we'll have to ratify it through our county commission. That paperwork will have to be taken to that county. They'll have to ratify it, then they'll send it back to us, and then at that point, we'll change keys and a check.
Okay. There's a proposed motion on your iPad. Has everyone had a chance to look at that? Any questions?
I've got a question. Sheriff, will these vehicles be stripped? I mean, like our cameras, laptops, some of the light bars that can be moved from vehicle to vehicle to save us on cost if we're buying another vehicle, or what's the story on that?
That's the thing that's, with these vehicles, these are the Crown Vics, these are the older vehicles that we have. The laptops will be pulled out. All the equipment with these cars, that's why I was telling the mayor earlier, when we sell our Crown Vics right now, I can take and strip them of all of our equipment out. We can haul them over to Clark Iron and Metal or one of the scrap yards. We get $800 for scrap metal for those vehicles. If we sell them at auction, we get anywhere from $800 to $1,000 for that vehicle. We're proposing right now to sell them for around $2,000. That's with equipment in them. Basically, we delete the radio in it of our channels. Because the Crown Vics, we can no longer use that. We've gone on to the next generation of vehicles. There's nothing in it. The light bars don't fit on any of our new vehicles. The screens don't fit. So we pull this equipment out of them. We're scrapping it anyway.
Talking about your video cameras also?
Yeah, we've gone on to the next generation. We've gone on to a digital camera instead of the VCR tape.
Can't get more money out of these video cameras than the $2,000 here?
We left this technology. It's old technology. Pretty much as these cars are coming out, that's old technology. We're going to the next
All right.
So ultimately, by doing this, we're getting a little bit more.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion?
Yes, I got one question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I know we got a public safety committee, I think, to run that committee. Have they looked at this, or should they look at this, before we go to the full commission?
We had that little discussion this afternoon, and the sheriff, I think we'll take it on to public safety before we move it on to the full commission as well.
Anything else? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. The rest of our time will be, is exciting time. We will engage in a discussion with our Rutherford County Legislature delegation to Nashville, to the General Assembly. We want to thank the 4 of you who've showed up and found the time to be with us. We appreciate that. I think that what we will do, we'll start out with, is to maybe by seniority, let each legislator present some thoughts, introduce yourself on issues that will be coming up this coming session, what's important to you, and what's important and how that will affect Rutherford County. I think that after that, then the committee will be invited to ask any questions or make any comments. And then after that, we will open the floor up to the other commissioners in the audience to come to a microphone and join the discussion. So in your introduction, if you have any thoughts on short-term, long-term solutions to our commuting traffic situation to and from Nashville, if you could include that in your discussion. I can testify that there's no issues on the commute to Manchester and back. So if you're just focused to here in Nashville. So having said that, welcome Senator Ketron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the steering committee, Mayor Burgess. Thank you again for allowing us to come before the steering committee every time this year. We look forward to this and kicking it off before we head back down to the Hill next week. Let me start out by talking about, in my opinion, probably the 3 biggest issues that we'll be working on. Number one, overall largest problem, which will consume everything else, is of course the budget. The governor, who called me just a second ago, he wouldn't tell me what to say, but that's why I had to excuse myself, but that was him calling just to check on my health, and I do appreciate that. Didn't realize he was going to do that. But the budget, the governor has asked, he's going through, I think he's finished up with his budget processes with all the departments. He's asked every department not to across the board cut 7% from every department, but to surgically go in and look at ways that they can cut in every department that we have, from transportation to environment to education, et cetera. We fell short on our projections almost $300 million this past year when the funding board met. So between that and the shortfall in the projections for F&E, our franchise and excise tax, is where we're having to make that up. First quarter of this year, of 15, we're up about $100 million. In sales tax revenue, we'll wait and see probably 1st of February, see what the Christmas sales will have brought us, which will give us a pretty good indication as we head in probably towards the end of April of finalizing the budget for the 15-16 year. Number 2 probably is TennCare Medicaid expansion. It's probably going to be one of the largest issues that we will debate, I think, number 2, because it is consuming so much of our budget. Back in the last administration, when Governor Bredesen was there, we had reached 25% of our total budget was going to TennCare, or the state's Medicaid. We are now right at the 33% mark of our entire budget, which is being consumed for TennCare. And as we continue to grow, so will those numbers. We don't know what's going to happen now, this being the first week with a total majority in both houses in Washington. We don't know what's going to occur there, if a repeal is going to come. The governor is going to bring us a request to expand Medicaid or our TennCare. My opinion is that I think that we should wait because there's been so many states that have combined in a lawsuit on Obamacare, and the Supreme Court should be making a decision on that sometime within the next 60 days or at least by March. Let's wait and see what they're going to do concerning that before we take any action as far as expansion is concerned. It's really affecting a lot of our, without the expansion dollars, it's affecting a lot of our rural communities. We'll have probably some hospitals that will go out of business. But, you know, if you look at it, they were going to go out of business anyway. So those are issues that we've all got to take into consideration. Common Core, I think, is the third large issue that we will debate when we go back next week. It's been a contentious issue here and in other states. Some states have already pulled out. I think the governor, a couple of weeks ago, he did tell Senator Bell from over in East Tennessee, who in conjunction with Senator Gresham had filed a bill. The governor was upset about the bill that they filed, but he did admit that probably Common Core as we currently know it is probably over. So we have a new Commissioner of Education that he will set forth to sit down with all parties concerned around the table and try to come up with some type of core educational structure that reflects Tennessee values. And I think that's where you'll find the support from members of the General Assembly. Transportation, except for going to Bonnaroo, I think that's the only time you have trouble going to work, right? I don't know what we do during that period of time.
I've never been.
I do think, of course, I've gotten some criticism. I've got a lot of support on an idea that I strictly just threw out about putting in a monorail down the middle of the interstate. This is not a new idea by any means. Back when I was on the county commission, back in 1990, I think it was 1989, the year after Jeff and I came on the county commission, that Alan, you were here back. John Hood, John Bragg, and some of those guys were actually talking to CSX about using the rail and putting some type. I know there was supposed to be a land port here in Murfreesboro, one in Smyrna, and one in downtown at Union Station. Well, CSX just finally said, "Go away, quit talking to us. We're not interested in passenger service on the rail," and they're harder to deal with than a post office sometimes. I mean, they're that governmental structure. They don't want to talk. So we can't go underground because of our topographical geology that we have here. The monorail seems to be the cheapest, but the price tag we got back from TDOT was $1.3 billion. How do you pay for that? I have been approached by a company out of Europe that said, if you just give us the right-of-way to put it in, we'll erect it and we'll run it in a private-public partnership. These are all just ideas to float out there, but we have to have some type of vision of how we're going to handle public transportation. There are short-term solutions. There's been talk with TDOT, and Senator Tracy should be on his way. He called a few minutes ago. He's stuck in traffic, so we can ask him. He was coming from Nashville. We'll ask him how he likes driving this time of night, and gets him here after the meeting. But we've talked about hot lanes, putting in hot lanes with TDOT. Some larger cities have hot lanes, which means that they're cornered off. If you've been to Dade County in Florida, they have the pylons every so many feet, and then you have to have you pay for a permit to drive within that lane. So your service vehicles, your HVAC guys, your electrical contractors, et cetera, are willing to pay to have that barcode on there, and they read your barcode, and it takes you in that hot lane. That could be done, but there's only so much room on I-24 between here and there. But what I do know is if we're at 290,000 population and the projections on the chamber and everybody else says that we're going to be at 600,000 by 2025, that's 10 years down the road. So our vision can't be that clouded. We need to be focused, and I think it would be wise for the county commission and all the city councils in Rutherford County working in conjunction with us and TDOT to start looking, because that corridor between Murfreesboro and Nashville is the most crowded. It has the highest traffic count of any 30-mile corridor in the whole state of Tennessee, even Memphis, Chattanooga, et cetera. And it's just going to continue to get worse. After that, I'll thank you again for letting us be here. Look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
From Smyrna, we have Representative Mike Smarks. Welcome.
Yeah, glad to be here with y'all. You know, where do I start? There's so many issues. I carried the monorail bill on the House side, and I just fought that traffic. In fact, I called Commissioner Turner, said I'd maybe a few minutes late. It is pretty rough. The AMP system, if you remember that coming up, being a big issue with Nashville, that's $30 million a mile right there, $30 million a mile. The BR, not to be disagreeable, Senator Ketchum, but the BRT system, if y'all really study, it'd be great if we just find a way to pay for it. You know, and I'm fighting that traffic. There's people watching. Some of y'all fight that traffic to Nashville. We got to find a way to pay for it. The Federal Highway Trust Fund is basically insolvent. It's bankrupt. So how do we find the money? You know, that's going to be the big crust, and that gets back to y'all's issues. I mean, I know y'all are one of the biggest issues I hear from Commissioner Cook and Schaefer and Commissioner Turner is some of these unfunded mandates that get handed down to y'all. Just like we get handed down mandates from the federal government. We don't want to pass them on to y'all. I did bring a resolution that I'm willing to carry if the steering committee wants to forward it on to the full commission. We Delane run a weekly county had run a proclamation here, basically just asking the state legislature to really scrutinize unfunded mandates. I left y'all a copy, left every commissioner a copy, as well as Lisa Nolan and the mayor. Here's another bill that I was going to bring up that if y'all wanted to carry it, or me to carry it, by Senator Yeager, Senate Bill 460. And basically this is saying that if there's any unfunded mandates that's going to be handed down, that the state will make sure they find a way to pay for it. This bill, I think, was sent to summer studies, what legal had told me. To be honest with you, it'll be tough to get that through the state legislature, but we can try. Some other issues, you know, the budget, Senator Ketchum mentioned, you know, we were $179 million short in the budget last year. Our prison budget, which is a big issue, increased $46 million last year. You know, the payday loan industry is something that I appreciate Commissioner P. speaking about it. I appreciate the Smyrna officials looking at it. I think Murfreesboro, if I'm not mistaken, is looking at the payday loan industry. And one thing and I really want to ask these reporters to really scrutinize that bill. The state legislature increased the interest rate that they can charge on folks. I was only Republican. That was before these two folks got up there. I was only Republican, didn't vote for that bill. And that's why you're seeing them just blossom like kudzu growing across Middle Tennessee. You know, you get down to economics, you don't see them in Franklin or Brentwood, not like you see them in Smyrna, Laverne, and Murfreesboro. You know, some could argue it's free market. It took the legislature, they passed interest rates, these interest rates could be as high as 300 to 400% that they're charging people. Then people could lose their vehicles, which is a collateral. And we're talking about mass transit. You know, we don't have a great mass transit system. So people losing their vehicle, how are they going to get to work? And we were at the school board meeting with them, with our delegation, I think about 3 weeks ago, about a month ago, and they were complaining about kids showing up late for school. How do we not know that's not a factor of these kids being late for school? I think it's a serious issue. I think it's pillaging the community. I wish that the steering committee would take a position on that. The county commission would take a position on that. You know, if it's affecting our constituents, to me, it's an issue. The tow truck legislation, I'll be looking at that this year. I'm getting a lot of complaints. Y'all may have that to where someone may lose their vehicle. The sheriff and I have talked about this. Say your vehicle breaks down on the side of the interstate and they pick it up. You go to get that vehicle, redeem it. It may be $500, it may be $1,000 to get your vehicle back. I mean, if you may have some people, McAdoo, that's complained to you, you know, these are issues, and I'm going to be honest with you, they don't have lobbyists. There's nobody running around Nashville knocking on legislators' doors to try to solve these problems. And that's why you're seeing some of this stuff. It's not being, there's no free market when you talk about these tow truck companies, because you're at the mercy of that tow truck company. You know, yeah, they have a $80,000 wrecker, $100,000 wrecker, but if they sign up with the sheriff, they ought to adhere to what their prices are. But that's something I'm looking at. You know, it may not be a big issue for y'all right now, but as the county grows, especially if we hit a 600,000 threshold mark of population, it's going to be an issue. Davidson County, they have got a transportation board that oversees some of this, like the taxi board. And, you know, I'm the last one that wants to create any new restrictions on small businesses. But when you're seeing constituents, I mean, my assistant, for example, lost her daughter was in a car wreck. 28 days the car sat there. They wanted $1,100 to get the car back. The car wasn't even worth $1,100. They said, bring us the title. This is happening in Rutherford County. It's also happening in Shelby County. It's happening in other areas. But this is issues that I kind of wish that you know, that y'all could help with, because I'm telling you, these constituents, they don't have no lobbyists in Nashville. I promise you. And I've said this before, the drug addicts, those that's incarcerated, there are no lobbyists up here trying to solve addiction, which is 70% of the reason our jails are full. Alcohol and drug addiction is why. That's impacting this county. Y'all done a great thing, I think, and I want to commend the mayor for hiring Trey King. Trey's a phenomenal guy. He used to be with AG's office. I hope it's okay for me to say that publicly, but I really have a lot of respect for him. He helped me fight the synthetic drug issue across the state, and Trey's very knowledgeable, and he's from Rutherford County. He's also very passionate about helping find solutions. But I'm here. I wish we met more often. We don't even meet with our federal delegates. The General Assembly never, that's something that's just, I talk about a disconnecting government. There's a blatant example when you don't even meet with Corker, you don't meet with your senators, Alexander, your congressman. I mean, we can meet with them one-on-one, but as far as like we're meeting with y'all here today, we don't do that, and it kind of dumbfounds me that doesn't happen. It should happen, but I wish we'd meet more often, and I'll hand it over to Senator Tracy.
Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be here with y'all. Thank y'all for your service in the county. I'll be very brief. I'm sure everybody's already touched on a lot of the things that we're going to be challenged with. It's this year, of course, is the budget. We're interested to see how that's going to work out. We do have, the governor has called for a special session on the Insure Tennessee, and we'll be working on that. And we think, I don't think we know exactly when that's going to be, but when you have a special session, everything else is put off to the side, and we'll spend a week or so just on that. Transportation issues are going to be big this year. We're going to be looking at that to see if the federal government, they have continued to cut off the funding from us at the state level. So let me just say on transportation, as y'all know, the high growth areas like Rutherford County, it's a big deal. Roads are a big deal, very big. Across the county, I could name them all. I won't start naming them all because there's 4 or 5 right on the top of my head that I know that needs to be done right now. Jefferson Pike, I could go through several of them that I've driven over in the last 3 weeks of people wanting improvements on. So roads are going to be important because of the growth that's continuing to happen in Rutherford County. You got to have roads to people to get in and out to work, and that's going to be important to do. So we're anxious to see what the federal government's going to do. They've not been able to put forth any additional funding for us, and they really don't have a funding bill, a transportation bill. They've got one to like March. They should have a 6-year plan, so we're anxious to see that. Education's going to be a big issue this year. I have a bill dealing with coming up with our own state standards, and I believe that that's what we ought to do with my background in education, and I'll always believe that local local education. The local LEA should have the impact on that. So we'll be working on standards that won't be Common Core standards. They'll be Tennessee state standards, and I think we need the highest standards in the country. And if we're going to continue to recruit jobs in Rutherford County, education is very important. That you got to have a good education system. So those will be some of the things that we'll be working on. There's several other bills. I picked up a few today that people are interested in. You'll hear more about that, but I'm anxious to hear your feedback and what you want us to work on. So I'm glad to be here tonight.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Donna White, welcome.
It's exciting not to be the last one. So I'd like to welcome Representative Brian Terry to our delegation. He's going to be a great asset. You know, not to repeat what my colleagues have said up here, but of course, I believe the budget, like Senator Ketron said, is going to be probably one of the top issues we're dealing with, finding ways to fund the fiscal notes on bills. Of course, when we go back into session, as Senator Tracy said, Insure Tennessee is going to be what we will hear about the most. And then, of course, Common Core education reform will still be in the forefront of our session, and what Common Core will be you know, what will happen with Common Core. Again, I've always said I'm against Common Core. I don't believe we need anything handed down from the federal government. As a former teacher, I believe we need parents, teachers, superintendents of schools telling us how to educate our Tennessee children, not the federal government. But of course, that will be an issue. A lot of bills will be on that. I'll make my comments brief. Thank you for having me, because I want to hear what y'all's issue is and what you have to say. Because I believe, you know, we're all elected to represent Rutherford County, and I believe we all have to work together. So if there's anything I can ever do for you, my phone's always just a phone call away, email, and my door's always open. But thank you so much for having us. This is very important to hear your issues as well.
Thank you. And we especially would like to welcome to our most junior member, Dr. Terry. When are you being sworn in? Next Tuesday.
13th.
Okay, thank you, and welcome tonight.
I'd like to thank you guys for having us here tonight. I'd like to echo some sentiments that Representative Sparks mentioned. You know, we don't have a bilateral session with our federal representatives, and that's something I think that is sorely needed. You know, there's a disconnect between here and Washington, and you know, there may be a disconnect that you guys may feel between here and Nashville, and you know, having something like this, having open communication, I think is something we need more of. So my phone, you know, call me anytime. I think, you know, obviously we're on the same team, echoing something that Don said, you know, here for Rutherford County, here for the taxpayers. If you see any issues or any red flags, you know, be sure and let me know. You know, being a junior member, I'm just trying to get my feet wet. I'm in the information gathering process. You know, I've already been hit with issues as our other senators spoke on the budget. That's obviously going to be a big issue. And then, you know, I get thrown into a special session dealing with Medicaid expansion and Insure Tennessee and how that's going to function. And so I'm just gathering information on that right now. I've been approached by some other legislation, but not necessarily anything that I think may impact here, Rutherford County, so much what you guys do. Other things that we're going to be dealing with, obviously nobody's touched on this yet, but pro-life issues. I've been approached with some possible legislation on that. Our Tennessee educational standards, and then you guys asked for us to discuss any sort of traffic plan or thoughts on that. And again, for me, when I look at an issue, look at what our premise is and what is our goal, and we have to think long-term with the growth that we have in our county. We're going to have to think long-term on these goals. Look at what options are in front of us, you know, and examine those. Look at what those the feasibility of those are, and how we can fund that. And is it going to be work for us here in Tennessee with it being such a busy thoroughfare? And with that, again, my number is, you know, call me anytime you have any issues. If you see any red flags, let me know. I'm happy to meet with any of you guys, and appreciate you guys having us.
Thank you. Okay, members of steering, we'll just kind of start down here. If anyone to my left have Any questions or comments, please feel free.
I got one question. Mike, starting on the left of State Senator Tracy. I'm very concerned about the Bradyville Pike project. Since it's in my district, is it on schedule, or will the state put it on the back burner, or what?
No, I think that is on, that's a great point. And hearing it from y'all, I think as I meet with the mayor quite often, I meet with a lot of y'all quite often. I mean, the good thing about Rutherford County, TDOT likes everybody on the same page. They want you to prioritize your roads. Bradyville Pike's at the top of the list. Jefferson Pike's at the top of the list. I mean, you got several roads across the county that are very important because of the transportation, and that one is, I travel that one a good bit since my son lives over there, so I know that road needs to be worked on, but I'll follow up on that and get you, if I'll try to work on that tomorrow and get you a report of where it is located. Of course, all these roads, depending on funding, it costs a lot of money to get these roads done with Jefferson Pike, Bradyville Pike. There's so many of these roads that with the growth happening, you know, you need to widen the roads. And so it is on the top of my list, and I'll continue to push that. So thanks for reminding me. I knew you would anyway.
Thank you.
Actually, most of the questions that I had, you've answered. Representative Sparks did a good job. Of course, a couple of questions that I had, and also Senator Ketron. I happen to agree with you. I think that we need to do light rail or something between here and Nashville. I think a lot of us would go to Nashville a little more often if we didn't have to fight the traffic back and forth. The only thing really, and some of you mentioned this too, and I appreciate all of you, but education, of course, you know, I'll come out and say again, my wife is an educator, but she's fixing to retire, but I'm looking at the future, and, you know, I've got grandkids hopefully coming on, that kind of thing. But education is so important to this county. You know, the education is what has brought in the jobs that we've got. It's why we're getting the growth that we've got. You know, Nissan for one, but unless we can continue our education, and when I ran for commissioner years ago, that's one thing I said, we've got a good school system, and I want to help promote it and continue to promote it. And the thing that I want to bring up and I'm concerned about are the charter schools and the voucher systems that I see becoming more and more prevalent, and I'm afraid that we'll rush into these and make mistakes. I know y'all are aware, in East Tennessee there was a mistake made on one of the online schools, and that poor little county ended up paying for students in Memphis, Nashville, and all over the state, and coming out of their budget. So, you know, it's easy to make mistakes on that, but as far as the voucher systems and the charter schools, if you look nationwide, and I've done a lot of reading on this, usually they'll do real good for a year or two, and then their grades drop. And they're, you know, at the same standards or lower than what they were with the public schools. And to me, when we're taking that money away from our public schools, here in Rutherford County, we use that to give courses that you wouldn't normally get. Some of these kids are able to take college level courses and get them beforehand. We won't be able to offer that to our students and to the industries that are wanting to come in here. And you guys know, if you're talking to the Chamber of Commerce, the most important thing we can do for this county is have a good education system. That's why people move here to Rutherford County, is because of our schools. If you don't believe me, go out to the Chamber and talk to those folks. I guarantee you, if you were recruiting, one of the first things they're going to ask you is, what about the school systems? But please, whatever you do, keep that in mind for us. Now, I understand there are failing school systems, and we definitely need to address those. And I know that you've got other districts, you know, especially you senators, that you've got to look at, and they have concerns too, and I understand that. But when you have an exemplary system school like we do here in Rutherford County, please do not hurt us by taking those funds away.
Commissioner, I wanted to respond to you about the education. One of the things that you'll see, I think, this year, Governor Haslam talked about giving teachers a raise last year, and that's probably one of the number one things on our agenda this year to maintain that. with the BEP, to fully fund the BEP program, and that's important. Also, too, you notice that the governor did make some changes on the evaluations, just came out a couple weeks ago on that, and I think that came from him touring around the state and visiting with teachers. As far as charter schools, I'll tell you my opinion on charter schools. I believe, and I've always believed, that it should be under the local control of the local school board to have them oversee. If you're going to do charter schools, they ought to be under their umbrella. That's what I believe. Education is important. We've got to continue to keep high standards. We've got to continue to put the best teachers we can in that classroom, because we know that's the most important thing, and that's what we got to continue to do. And that's going to help us, as you said, bring in the jobs, because the industries are looking for an educated workforce, and they're also looking for, when the employees for that industry want to make sure those children are in a good school system. And that's one reason why Rutherford County, like you said, has been to continue to grow. So that'll be a big issue with me, and continue to work on the education system and work with the local, both Rutherford County and Murfreesboro City schools.
As a former Murfreesboro City school teacher, I will tell you those are some of the most hardworking, dedicated teachers in the system. I went and got my master's in EDS with Rutherford County teachers, and I saw firsthand those are some of the most dedicated, hardworking teachers in the state, and I would even say in the nation. I think Rutherford County and Murfreesboro City has some of the best, but there are places in the state. And unfortunately, when you look at a statewide, and you'll hear anywhere we're in the 40th or we're in the 30th in education, it isn't. We have to do something with those parts of the state. And I know the governor proposed a bill for the bottom 5% of failing schools to get a voucher. That would not affect. I've talked to Rutherford County schools superintendents. I've talked to Murfreesboro City school superintendent. That would not affect any of our schools. We have to raise those so Rutherford County and Murfreesboro City teachers will get the praise that they deserve. Because I have seen firsthand as a teacher the dedication and the hard work that our teachers put in, and I know your wife is probably one of them. But unfortunately, not all of our state has the wonderful school systems that Murfreesboro City and Rutherford County has. So, we are probably going to look at a voucher bill. The governor's probably going to propose another one, but we're going to have to do something to get those bottom 5% so Tennessee will get the recognition that it deserves.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank each of you for taking your time to be here, to spend your time with us, to discuss things with us. And I would like to make this statement for Senator Tracy. You hit on something there, Senator Ketron, that the infrastructure is what is triggering growth. Build it and they'll come. And with the 960-something miles of roads that the Rutherford County Highway Department is responsible for, we have some bragging rights. We have some of the best roads in the state, and we have some of the best employees in county government all the way around. But my question to you, Senator Tracy, is could you expound just a little bit on the formula for monies that comes from the state that assists the county highway department? Now, I know there's well over 200,000 registered vehicles in the county now, and the highway department gets their portion from the wheel tax. But could you expound on that? Plus, maybe hit on what the future, probably like asking how high is up about maybe the gasoline tax increase that keeps floating around.
Well, let me talk a little bit about what you asked about how the formula comes down to the county. And let's talk about in history what's happened in the last 15, 20 years. First of all, in Tennessee, we have no debt on our roads. Tennessee Department of Transportation. We pay as we go. And we pay as we go through the diesel tax and the gasoline tax. Diesel tax, state diesel tax is about a little over 18 cents. The state gasoline tax is about 21.4 cents per gallon, and it's on a per gallon basis. Now, what's happened over the years, as we all know, sitting in this room, cars have gotten more fuel efficient. So when cars get more fuel efficient and you're getting 25 miles a gallon instead of back when I was in high school, about 10 or 11, you know, so therefore the revenue is down. And a percentage, all that money goes into transportation. We passed a bill, I was a sponsor of the bill about 4 years ago, where that money cannot be used in the general fund. I've heard some of the people ask that question to me over the years. Not anymore. That all money goes to transportation uses only. So, and a percentage of that goes down to the county. And I'm not sure exactly what that is, how many cents out of that 21.4 cents, but there's a percent that comes to the counties, a percent that comes to the cities, and that helps fund their local roads. And you were on the road board here in Rutherford County for a long time. So I don't know exactly what that is, but there is a percentage. But overall, the amount of money that we're getting in, and we're getting less and less from the federal government. So that tells you a little bit. I think that answers your question. So long term, you know, we have now, let me just say for the future, you have electric vehicles, not many on the road right now. They are on the roads. We're not getting any revenue from electric vehicles. Another vehicle that's going to be on the road pretty quick and is the liquid natural gas. And we don't get any revenue off of them right now. So those are some of the things we're looking at for the future, because, you know, the transportation is one of the few things, it's a use fee. If you travel a lot, like I do, I'm 40,000 miles a year, you're paying more in gasoline tax or diesel tax. The long haul trucks, big trucks, they're going to pay a lot more than we do because they're on the road a lot. So it is a use fee. The more you use, the more you pay. So it does go into a fund. It's not shared with any other department. It goes in all that transportation.
I want to honor everybody, so I want to thank the delegation for what you do for us, and I'm proud of our delegation. I think we've got the best delegation in the state, and we're honored to have you guys up there representing us. Publicly, I shared with him privately, Senator Ketchum, everyone's praying for you and your family. I want to publicly make sure you know that because some things are more important than some bills, and job status and health of our friends and community is one of them, so our prayers are with you and your family. Just a couple things I wanted to touch on, touch on some things. I appreciate Representative Sparks bringing up some things about unfunded mandates. That's obviously something that we get hit on the head with, same way that you guys do, and I appreciate you bringing that up as something that's possible to be brought to the House and the Senate floor. And Senator Tracy, too, I get calls every once in a while about the Rocky Fork exchange, and so I trust that we're making some progress on that, and that'll be, there's a lot of people that understandably get caught in the same traffic that you just got caught in when you were coming back, and I get caught in every day. And when Senator Ketchum was talking about the railway going right to Union Station, that's right where I work. So I'm very interested in that, so that's good. But all joking aside, unfunded mandates and our community obviously is growing, and we're seeing families move in here. Immigration is an issue that we're seeing a lot of new families come in here that are immigrating to not just Tennessee, obviously to the country, but to Tennessee. So student population is becoming a challenge for us, and most of you know that there's a plan out there from the school board that proposed $250 million, give or take, in new construction over the next 5 years for Rutherford County, and you know there's really only one real way for us to fund that if we don't get some help, and that's a big challenge. And I think Mr. P touched on it. The challenge for us sometimes as Republicans, speaking for myself too, is to champion that I'm anti-tax increase and worry about somebody else funding it, and still been able to puff my chest a little bit saying that I voted not to raise your taxes. And at some point we have to lead. And I know you guys are doing that, and I know certainly that's what we're trying to do up here as county commissioners. But one thing even on a personal level that Dr. Terry touched on a little bit is I'm pro-life, and I expect that our delegation continues to push pro-life vision at the state level. I'm proud that we passed Amendment 1. I'm proud that we've got an extremely strong pro-life delegation and a pro-life state Congress, and I want to see us to maintain that. Every life is precious, but when you can speak up for somebody that doesn't have a voice for themselves, then you're really doing something, because they can't do something for you. So I'm proud of you for bringing that up. I appreciate you focusing on that. Same as gun rights, Second Amendment rights. I know we don't talk about that a lot of times in meetings that we have with our own state delegations, but Rutherford County citizens, that's important to them, is being able to maintain that Second Amendment right. So I appreciate some of your focus on that. And one thing, Senator Ketchum, I wanted to touch on that you talked on, that's uncomfortable sometimes is TennCare expansion and Medicare expansion, and how a lot of that budget is now dedicated to, I think you said 34% of the budget is TennCare. Dawn knows, or Representative White, sorry, we need to give you the right title, and Representative Sparks and some other folks here know that my daughter is handicapped, special needs. And while we're not involved in the TennCare program itself, we've got a lot of families and friends that are. And I plan on being their voice for that, to make sure that when we do look at those kind of cuts, that you understand that there's real families that get affected by that. I know you guys know that. But look for the fraud, which we do, and look for the families that are abusing that, and really remember that there's families that are counting on that for their children's survival. And I don't say that just to puff up that argument. I've seen it. Multiple surgeries, wheelchairs, trips to the doctors that TennCare covers. Just remember the ones that are in our community that don't have all the opportunities in private insurance that I've been blessed with through a good company. And just keep that in the back of your mind, if not the back of your mind, even in the front of your mind when those types of discussions come up, that, we're here for the families that don't always have the loudest voices too, and I know you guys know that. But again, I don't want to waste your time, and Mr. Sparks, I think, had something to say, but thank you again for your service. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. I just wanted to, and Bill probably knows what I'm fixing to say, I don't mean to put him on the spot, but before I knew Senator Ketchum, I knew him as a business owner. He owned the market on Weekly Lane, and I remember pulling up. This was probably in 97, 98, and he was out there painting the little poles out there. And I said, "Is this your market?" He says, "Well, yeah, it is." I said, "Well, you do a great job taking care of this market, And I always have utmost respect for entrepreneurs out there. And years ago, I had a guy that came to me that's mentally challenged, went through TRC. I just spoke at Tennessee Rehabilitation Center's commencement of the address. And the folks that never went through TRC, John Hood always goes. And I really appreciate John for showing up. Senator Ketchum's been there, Jim Tracy's been there, and Representative White and others. But it's a lot of folks that's mentally challenged. They blind or paralyzed or something. It's very moving. It's a great center. This young man came to me, wanted a job. I really didn't need the guy. Mentally challenged, but had a great work ethic. And I always kid, he can bowl strike after strike. His name's Donnie Charles, strike after strike. He's had a perfect game before. It's amazing, okay, that he's mentally challenged and can pull this off. Well, it was getting wintertime, so I sent him over to Senator Ketchum, and I said, I can't work you because it's wintertime, Went over to Ketchum. Bill said, "I'll hire him," and put him to work. And I always appreciate Senator Ketchum doing that to touch those lives. But I can tell you, the hearts up here, as well as Representative Womack, feel what you're talking about. And I don't want to be the party of no. I want to be the party of solutions. Many times people just say no, and they never try to find solutions to try to address some of these issues. But I can promise you, this delegation will be trying to find those solutions. Thank you.
One other thing, thank you, Mr. Sparks. One other thing, I would hope that maybe we could work towards, Mr. Chairman, doing this a little bit more than once a year, even before things come up or even after post-session, just to let us know, what happened in the session that affects us. Because truth be told, I probably got more calls about this meeting than I've gotten in a year about meetings that we're going to on the committee level. So I think people are certainly watching and interested, and I think it would be a good value to our constituents if we kept doing this a little bit more often than maybe once a year. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioners to my right.
2 against 4.
Robert always has something to say.
I appreciate you saying to the right. Kind of makes me feel a little bit better about things. A complicated kind of a scenario, and we've talked about transportation, and we talked about corridors, and we've talked about all kinds of things, but just a little bit of a background. I'm a Rutherford County native. I've never lived anyplace else, and I probably never will live anyplace else. And my wife is from here, her family's from here, my family's from here, all of us live here. We've seen changes that were unimaginable to me as a young man. And those changes keep escalating. We're looking at $270 million proposed plan from our school board, another $75 million from just the judicial system. the county has now begun a safety process that deals with fire protection and emergency management. We've also expanded our sheriff's department quite a bit, and our sheriff is also proposing to modernize and bring us up to date, and all of those things cost a tremendous amount of money. It looks like, from a state perspective, you look at cutting things back, and from a local perspective, I don't know how we do that. You know, when you're growing like we are, we have to look at continuing to spend money. The growth itself really doesn't pay for what's going on. The transportation needs that we have, Senator Tracy has mentioned that several times. It appears to me that we continue to grow in the northern end of the county. We've got 7 high schools, and all of them are there. There's not a one on the southern end of the county. We need to figure out ways to better utilize the land that we have available and not continue to grow where we really can't afford that overcrowding situation. And if we're looking at opportunities for traffic sheds, those kinds of things, similar to what they're doing in Williamson County. The issues that we have are just alternative revenue issues when we need that alternative revenue. I think Commissioner Turner said, you know, we have very little available to us. And a few years ago, the state passed legislation that tend to hurt some of our decision-making local process that dealt with certain growth taxes, those types of things. And what I would like to see, if those type of things came up at a state level, that we were involved in your decision-making as to how that would affect us and not just the state as a whole. So I don't really know, but some of the projects that we're talking about, I think Commissioner McAdoo said Bradyville Highway, and we appreciate the types of things that have happened, and that is, in my mind, probably on the right end of the county for us to look at the future. We've got opportunities to expand water service to that end of the county, because when it looks at, and I think Tim could probably even attest to this, there are some situations that we want to develop certain land, but the availability of water lines are just not there for us to grow in certain areas. So as we look at the future, we might need your help as far as us planning what we want this county to look like 20, 30, 40, and 50 years from now, and not just be totally unable to manage where some of this growth goes. We're really have a love affair with our county, and we want to make sure that what we do over the next 5 or 10 years will be the right thing to do for my kids and my grandkids and your kids and your grandkids. So from that perspective, when some of those legislation comes up, we would like to be involved in some of that, and like for you to ask us for our input when some of those things come about. You're looking at having to cut your budget, and we're looking at having to expand ours quite a bit, and I'm not sure that there are any alternative revenues out there, but I know this commission, and I know that they'll look at cutting some of those requests that come along, but they're numerous, and they seem to multiply year after year, and I can only feel for what you guys are going through. But from our perspective, the growth is a wonderful thing, but it also has its challenges. And if you just look at 4%, that doesn't sound bad, but if you look at 4% over 10 years, what does that math add up to? And that's 40%. And those types of things were just It's just almost unimaginable. We continue to build, and those are the right things to do. But it's really difficult. I think Commissioner Turner, again, alluded to that, and we're going to have to find ways to spend more money to accommodate our kids and our grandkids. And your help and your consideration when it comes to those type of things would be real important to at least this commissioner. And once again, I would like to thank you for the job that you do and the conservative approach that you guys take to things. It's part of my roots, and I know it's part of your roots. The way things have changed, the company that I work for opened up a milk processing plant in 1981 really, and about 75% of the milk that was supplied there came from Rutherford County. And now there are less than 5 operating dairies in the county itself. So agriculture is taking a big hit. Maybe that's what the southern end of the county needs to be. I don't know. But maybe we also ought to look at when we're looking at building certain things, where do they go? So the transportation end that you guys have talked about is real important, and we don't just need to focus on certain prospects of our planning for the future. So thank you for once again looking into those type of things and some of those roads and waters and all of those type of things. Just the utilities itself has come a long way, and I know a lot of you have been involved in that, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Phillips, I remember when Mayor Allen was here, we looked at that, we started that Alternative Revenue Study Committee. I don't know who I was on steering with me at the time, but your hands are definitely limited. You know, with property tax, wheel tax, there's not much you can do. But, you know, when we going back to education, Commissioner P., I mean, if 70%, 65% of our budget is education, not to be disagreeable with you on vouchers and charters, but, you know, I'm open-minded to everything. You know, throw out an idea out there, let's see if it's going to work. I've got several notes here from Commissioner Schaefer. I hope he doesn't mind many of his concerns about mandates. You know, we don't have enough time to go through every one of them, Commissioner Schaefer. We have all, but I'm willing to come to steering and isolate every one of these. And let's look at what we can do here. But your hands are limited. You know, I know what it's like. I had 3 brick and mortar businesses, and I know what the county done to me. I paid $82,000 for a building, went to $330,000. No one's going to pay me $330,000 for that building. No one is. But they taxed it at that. You know, so I don't need to get started, Commissioner Phillips, but you got me started, you know. But, you know, we're kind of killing the golden goose, which is the small business community. You know, you're seeing more of them close down. Times are changing. I'll dare say the drug problem, addiction, alcoholism is the #1 issue, and it's affected everything. It's affected everything. We had a bad wreck out Weekly Lane. Can't say it's drug or alcohol related, but it's a terrible road. You know, seen countless accidents. It's alcohol's involved in. The sheriff's budget's big time affected by drugs. I was at St. Thomas Hospital last week with my sister, and they were on a divert status. They were full. Stonecrest was full. Pretty serious situation if you're sick. And I asked the doctor, I said, what do you do? What do you do when you're in this scenario? He says, what do patients? I said, what do patients do? And I guess he was kind of cutting up. He said, well, they die. And I was like, really? He says, and he kind of laughed. He said, well, we do try to solve problems and divert them to another hospital, Vanderbilt or something. But he told me, he says, half the problems in this hospital, drugs and alcohol. Drugs, alcohol, tobacco. Half of them. So we look at those issues, and that's why, again, I'll applaud the mayor, the sheriff, the GED program that y'all are doing. It's one of the best in the state. You know, Mother Teresa said, if you can't feed 99, feed one of them. Just feed one. And that one is $25,000 worth of savings. And I've stood right there. You've heard me, McAdoo. We turn 100 men's lives around. That's $2.5 million. You know, we can't continue to incarcerate people and lock them up like we're doing. Yeah, get, you know, strong, violent criminals off the road, but some of these folks is dealing with drugs and alcohol. Let's try to treat them. Let's put some money on the front end. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I'll be honest with you, half the people don't get these things. Half of them don't. Trey, that y'all hiring, he gets this stuff, so I really applaud you. Solandy gets these things. Sheriff Arnold gets these things. And it's frustrating when you see the community change, when you see your country and your city and your state change. But, you know, I mean, my heart's with you. I mean, I've experienced it as a commissioner up here. You know, I feel for the growth that y'all are facing. We all facing. It's going to be tough.
Thank you.
Well, like everybody else, I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. It's always my favorite meeting of the year to find out what's going on in Nashville and how those things affect us, and hopefully you listen to our ideas and take those up there with you. I had a couple of questions, and first one I'll address to Senator Ketchum. There's a proposal out there to eliminate the hall income tax, and the counties and the cities get a small portion of that. And I was wondering what's going to happen to the revenue that would go to counties and cities if that tax is eliminated. Is the state going to still provide that funding to us?
Commissioner Stevens, I believe that the counties and cities share in about 3/8 of that dollar from that hall income tax. There is a proposal both in the House and the Senate, probably 2 or 3 bills, matter of fact, that will be coming. They were brought this year. The governor's going to be fighting it. Just don't know where we're going to be able to come up with the money. You know, the hall income tax was created in 1928 to tax capital stocks and any type of revenue that a person would invest. So it levies a 6% on those earnings from those stocks and bonds. Believe it or not, 57% of citizens who pay the tax earn less than $75,000 per year, while 40% make less than $50,000 per year. So it's actual a tax on those people's income from their investments, their 401ks, et cetera. What's going to happen? We haven't discussed that at this point because it's still going to be argued. I think it may run into the same fate that it did last year. But there's going to be another strong push by members of the General Assembly to try to get that eliminated. If you could get us, Mayor, if you could get us what that exact number would be, that would help us in the debate of what that 3/8%, what the dollar amount would affect Rutherford County. I think all of us would like to know what that amount would be. Okay. Representative here says that Mayor McFarland has already passed along to him what the effect would be for the city. So if we could get those, that would help us when the debate gets to the floor. The death tax, I think that's been part of the elimination over a series of years to eliminate the death tax, and I think that's probably going to complete itself by 2016. That will be off the books, which is another big issue that a lot of new industries are looking at when they come here, and they're going, well, I can go to Florida. I don't have to have there's not a hall income tax. There's not a death tax. So those are issues that will all be debated and weighed at the time.
Not necessarily opposed to eliminating that tax. It's probably a good idea, but just keep us in mind when you do that, because
where's the shortfall going to be for the county? Where's the money going to come from? Because it's actually, if we pass it to eliminate it, I think Senator Green may have one out of Montgomery County, and he wants to phase it in over a 5-year period. But we'll wait and see. But we definitely will keep that in mind because that is an issue of lost revenue for the county.
Okay. And then my next question I was going to direct to the members on the transportation committees. I have heard that the Jefferson Pike project's been put on hold indefinitely, and I was wondering if that is accurate or what the status of that is.
I'll take it. Jefferson Pike, you know, we've been talking about this since I was up here in 2002, you know. I went out there with Fox 17 years ago. A lady hit a pole at Mona, and the baby went through the windshield. Commissioner McAdoo, you may remember that. Commissioner Black, when he was up here, he was a big proponent about improving that road. No, they've done right-of-way acquisition. They're just now finishing up that. You know, wheels of government turn slowly. They're promising me, Paul Deggs, chief engineer, is promising me that project's going to be done in 5 years. It's going to be hard to believe. He's promised me. I don't know if he's promised Jim Tracy. Jim Tracy pulls a whole lot more weight with TDOT than I do. I'm just vice chairman. He's chairman. Okay.
Well, we've way on down the pike with Jefferson Pike. Now they have bought, they're in the process of buying all right away, and I think that may be finished. If it's not finished, it'll be finished. Now, it comes down to July 1 is when the next funding year goes for TDOT. But it has not been put on the back burner at all. It's actually the #1 project in Rutherford County, and that's how they base it. So Jefferson Pike's #1, and I won't rattle off all the other projects. There's 3 or 4 very important projects to TDOT. It won't be forgotten. It all depends on how much funding we have, to be honest with you. I mean, but the good thing for Jefferson Pike, a lot of the hard things have already been done. One of the hardest things about building a road is buying the right-of-way and negotiating on the right-of-way. So if we get through that phase, then the construction phase, and they've done the engineering, they've done the environmental, they've done all that. That's why it takes so long. Our goal at TDOT, when Governor Haslam came in, is to cut the time from 13 years to 8 years down to build a road. So we're in that process right now. So, Commissioner, it all based on funding. It is the #1 project in Rutherford County, and I will pledge that I will continue to work with the delegation. Everyone here knows how important that is. It's important not only to Smyrna and Rutherford County. Nissan's very interested in it, and I've met with them several occasions. The governor knows how important it is to that end of the county in Nissan. So it won't be put on the back burner. I'll guarantee you that.
Now, did I understand you to say, but no more money is going to be spent until July 1st on the project?
That's when the proposal will be for the construction phase. So we've already been funding for buying the right-of-way. The next phase, when you do engineering, you do environmental, you buy the right-of-way. So all those phases are done. The next phase is the construction phase. So that funding won't take place till the next let of projects, which will be usually June, July. And we'll know about those projects sometime about March or April. TDOT will let us know. So that's how it works.
That road, just to let folks know, I had some highway commissioners on the radio with us recently, and Scott Walker pulled up how many accidents in just a 3.5 mile span from the bridge to Smyrna was, I think, 66 accidents in the past 3 years. You know, it's extremely serious. I wish it went all the way to Mona. TDOT did make improvements for Senator Tracy and I. If you go through there at night, they did label, list there's some caution lights out there that did help the situation out there. It's still rough if you go through there. It's a bad road to travel, but I've asked them to try to take it to Mona. Senator Tracy has too. But Tennessee, you often hear that we're number 37th or 40th. We're #1 when it comes to roads. We're #1. In Texas, will argue they're #1, but I forgot how many millions of dollars they're in debt. How many? I mean, it's half $500 million. It's something astronomical with Texas. We have no road debt, so that's something you can be proud of with Tennessee being #1 in roads. And you've got 2 strong voices with myself and Chairman Tracy on transportation that'll continue to push this project forward. Thank you.
My next question was also a roads question. Every year I ask about the interchange at I-24, and I wanted to know, since last year, what action has been taken to get that on the Metropolitan Planning Organization's map. My understanding is that they're reviewing all the projects, and that if this one does not end up on their plan, it won't be funded. And even if it does get on there and gets approved, it's going to be 10 or 15 years before the thing could even be finished, is my understanding. But that is absolutely critical for our future. Smyrna's traffic on Sam Ridley is a nightmare. It takes sometimes 15 or 20 minutes to get from one end to the other, and you can see it. And that will open up all kinds of commercial markets. We're always on the quest for white-collar jobs. If we can connect with Cool Springs, those businesses might come this way. on that corridor. It'll be one of the main things in the town of Smyrna. It'll benefit the town and the county with sales tax revenue and commercial property tax revenue. So this is just absolutely critical. And I wanted to just ask, what action has been taken since last year to keep this alive and be sure that it happens?
Well, we just take it one day at a time, Commissioner Stevens. We got to get Jefferson Pike funded first, then we're looking at that. We had a meeting with some of the property owners over the other day, Senator Ketron and myself and Senator Tracy, meeting with some families over there. It's tough, especially in the financial constraints that the state's going to be in, and the Federal Highway Transportation Board, what they're going to be in. It gets down to money. We've had some constructive dialogue with TDOT on it, with ECD, because it is an economic issue. It's going to be a tough project. Just the bridge over Broadway, look how long it took to get this project done, and that was one reason I was almost late, Commissioner Turner, was tied up in that traffic. It's tough. I drove out to Franklin the other day and took them back roads, dangerous road. It needs to be opened up, and we're staying on them, and nobody's been a louder voice than Chairman Tracy and myself on that issue right there, no doubt.
Commissioner, thanks for asking that question on the interchange. It's a little more complicated than just trying to get it done. Let me tell you what we've done since last year. We had a meeting with Smyrna, with the council members there, the mayor, and we talked to them. We brought TDOT in and met with them, and now they know what needs to be done. They're in the process of doing a study. When you do a new interchange, you have to work with the Federal Department of Transportation. You have to work with them in conjunction with them, because there's federal money involved, and there's certain guidelines you have to meet on each interchange when you do it, just like Murfreesboro had to do here with the New Salem interchange, and you had the Medical Center Parkway interchange. So we're in the middle of that negotiation with the Federal Department of Transportation. We're going to count on our U.S. senators to help us with this issue, because it is going to be an issue with them. They have to approve it, and then TDOT will follow in. And there also has to meet certain guidelines when you do an interchange. We did one up in Cookville when I was involved with that, and there's certain guidelines, and I'll be glad to go over that with you. But we're making some progress with that. I think eventually it's going to happen. Like you said, planning with the growth that's happening in Rutherford County, that's something we got to look at, and that's what I've told our U.S. senators, both Senator Corker and Senator Alexander. I've met with both of them and talked to them about the importance of that, and I think they get it. Now we get them involved, and I think with the state, and we'll work on this, and that's where y'all can come in too as a body too, to encourage us to get that done. So I think it's very important for us, and we won't forget that either.
Hey, going back on that, I talked to Congressman Desjardins in D.C. about a month ago. Senator Ketron and I were up there. The argument I think that to make is from an economic development standard, you've got quadrants there. Where are you going to get, like the family we met with recently has 225 acres. 225 acres. Where are you going to consolidate that type of land today? You're not. So you've got a great argument there for another logistics center like Amazon or whatnot that could come in there. So I think the argument that we've been trying to pitch is from an economic development perspective, and I think the state gets it. It just takes time, and that's where it gets down to a lot of funding on it. Thank you.
One final question. I saw an article in the newspaper the other day about limiting mail pieces from legislators before elections, and I just wanted to ask each of you to support that. I think it's appalling that a legislator could use taxpayer money to send out campaign mail pieces, essentially campaign mail pieces right before elections. Right now, the article said that can be done up to 30 days before an election, and that some people have spent $10, $15, $20, $30,000 on using taxpayer money to send out letters and slick mail pieces to people in their district to increase their name ID and so forth. And I think that is just an absolute abuse of taxpayer money. I wonder why senators need $7,000 for postage and representatives need over $2,000. It seems like everything's electronic now. And I just did some simple figuring. If they cut that back, $1,000 for the representatives and a few $1,000s for the senators, there's $250,000 that could be saved right there. And that at the end of the year, if you haven't used your postage, instead of it building up This one gentleman has $105,000 in a postage account. I mean, that just doesn't seem right to me. So I think that's a good area that the state could look at to make some small cuts. Small cuts here and there add up, and I would suggest that that would be a place to look for reducing a little bit of unnecessary spending.
Well, I'll take that one unless Senator Kitchener wants to jump in. I don't know how you could have $105,000 in your postage account. I don't know who that is. Do you know who that person is?
Senator Bo Watson.
Wow, really. I don't see how you can spend $10,000. On slick mail pieces because, oftentimes you can do a survey, to see what issues are in the community. The postage account can be used to send a flag to Smyrna Middle School, to Stewart's Creek High School when they request one. This isn't money that just is wasted away. When you send a card or something, you send, if I want, I got these I'm handing out to all the reps. If I want to mail this would come out of that postage account. It's not for slick campaign pieces. I don't know who's ever sent one. It's a slick campaign piece, but we're allocated. It's not much money at all to communicate with your 65,000. That's how many people I have in my district. Y'all have, was it 185? How many people you have in your district? 192,000 people that they're trying to communicate with. We all have 65,000 each. $2,000 for a postage account is not much when you're trying to communicate with 65,000 people. I think we need to communicate with constituents just like we communicate with y'all. Open dialogue with what their concerns are is only going to be positive.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to invite any commissioners in the audience to find a chair with a mic. Also, any department heads that might want to ask a question or make any comments. Only one requirement is if you could just try not to get Mike Sparks going again, we'll appreciate that. Commissioner Schaefer.
Commissioner Gooch, that's awful tough not to do. And I just have to say something about his property and the appraised value on it. And if my memory serves me correctly, he is the one that set the comp for that property with what he sold very near it. So we'll leave it at that. But I do have a question for all five that are here tonight. And that is, what is the incentive for a high school student to graduate? I'll give you a minute to think on that, and then you can answer as you would. And I'm going to, unfunded and underfunded mandates. But I'm looking at the school system because we're growing, again, 1,200 students this year. That's more than a middle school. And I see the things that we've had to pay on our own that came right through from, and maybe it will change now because we got a new commissioner of education. But things like the 4 years of math and required to take the science, biology, or physics or chemistry, that's a good thing. And but it's costing us around $1 million a year to have those teachers, et cetera. I know when I was over in Southeast Asia, I could get tailor-made suits, tailor-made silk shirts that were cheaper than the cotton ones I could buy off the racks back in the States. But somewhere along the line, you run out of money. And that's what I'm seeing in a lot of this, the STAR system that we use for attendance, grades, all this stuff. Every 4 or 5 years when a new one comes out, we get underfunded on the help and the training, the upgrade, and it winds up costing us. And another thing, the new thing that's coming in, the RTI, the intervention that we're required to have, somewhere we got to come up with the teachers, whether we got an extra period somewhere or we can do that to work with them. And we have a lot of certified employees with the school board in this county that receive no funding in their pay whatsoever from the state. And so that's my points. And I liked, I think it was Senator Tracy said, hope to get the BEP fully funded. Well, I think all of us here would love to see that happen for once. Thank you.
Any legislators like to make a comment other than Mike Sparks?
Let me answer his first question. First question is, you ask about high school education. What's the incentive for young people to get a high school education? Well, if you look at statistics, and I read an article the other day, I forgot exactly high school graduates, and I think Senator Ketcher and I, we were at Oakland the other day, and they've got that new program over there with Career Technical Education, Megatronics. The students that graduate from high school with a diploma, I forgot exactly what the number is, but they make quite a bit more money over their lifetime than one that doesn't graduate from high school. Then you move on to a technology center or a college, and even goes up further. So that's why it's so important on education. We are aware of those things on education, Commissioner, and we've got a new commissioner. I think she will be very actively involved. She's been a teacher. I think she's anxious to get started. I talked to some folks today from the administration, so we're going to try to address some of those things you're talking about. And one of the things we did change a few years ago when we went to BEP 2.0, which helped Rutherford County, you know, the former BEP program paid in arrears, for example, in the growth, and you're aware of that. We did change it where it helped Rutherford County. Now, y'all are growing so fast in your school system, you wasn't getting your revenue from the state till after the school year. We have moved that to help a little bit, but there's a lot of things with Rutherford County growing like it is, like you know, and Commissioner Phillips pointed out about the growth and all the schools that are having to be built. It is a tremendous expense at the county level. And BEP funding, and we do think we need to pay our teachers more money, and I know the governor's committed to doing that, and it's going to cost anywhere, I looked at statistics today, $35 to $55 million to fund the BEP program, and I know the governor, that's one of the things he wants to do. I know he's pointed it out.
Commissioner Dodd? No. Anything from the other commissioners? Just find a microphone at the table, please. Any other commissioners or department heads, you go ahead and make your way up if you like.
Thank you, Chairman Gooch. I'm Mike Cush, County Commissioner, District 7 here in Rutherford County. Two questions. Prior to my election, I was heavily involved with the Chamber of Commerce on the board level and executive committee level. And almost this time last year, the annexation bill was passed. I asked this question for this reason. My district is primarily city limits. So I have the one side of the fence wanting the ability to annex and grow because the city really is the economic engine. Then I have my constituents on the other side that moved out to the county for a reason and want to keep it county. So how do I address their concerns? Is that bill dead? Is TASSER reviewing some mediation? Help me out on that. The second question is regards to transportation. Anyone who'd like to ask about or comment on annexation?
I think Senator Tracy can answer both of those. He sits on TASSER and transportation.
Yeah, Mayor Burgess and I are both on TASSER, and I don't think, Mayor, they've come up with a final decision on that issue yet. Is that correct? The last meeting we were at, I believe they were discussing it, but they've not made a recommendation to us yet on that.
Yeah, I think you're correct in that, but the bottom line is this. The legislature has already passed legislation that will not allow annexation without a referendum, basically. That's not going to change, and I don't think TASSER's recommendation will have any influence on what is already in place.
All right, and what was the next question you had about transportation?
Yeah, transportation. A huge proponent of transportation. It is really what drives every city and county. Growth, health, infrastructure is really what makes our world civilized. Besides the gas tax, which is an hour's discussion, and I think Governor Haslam has proposed to the Obama administration like a 12% over 2-year hike in the gas tax, something like that. But it sounds like the Obama group is not a big fan of increasing the gas tax. So my question to you is that the gas tax is just a piece of the puzzle, in my opinion. What other ideas are you pitching that could help bring money and funding to our old infrastructure that is sorely needed upgrade and new infrastructure needed for the growth that we're...
Yeah, I'll put round numbers on it. Now, there's so much need. Right now, with the growth happening in Tennessee, if we could come up with an additional revenue of $800 million to $1 billion a year additional revenue than what we are right now. We spend about anywhere from about $1 billion a year in Tennessee. That's joint federal and state. So we could come up with we've got the roads in place right now. We've got a plan in place to build roads across the state of Tennessee up to $800 million additional revenue if we had it. Now, to answer your question, there's someone studying that process right now. It would be a multiple approach, an approach to get some type of fee from electric vehicles, some type of from liquid natural gas. There's all kind of approaches out there to do it. They're supposed to have some kind of recommendation to us early in the year, maybe February or March, I think. There's a study going on in the industry, and they're looking at a multiple approach. I don't know what it is. You exactly said it correct. We're going to have to look at a multiple approach to do it, and I don't know exactly what that is, but I think I will know in about 30 to 60 days.
Commissioner, as you know, we don't have a state income tax, and I think the state of Tennessee sent a pretty strong message and has sent a strong message that they don't want a state income tax, so we don't have that source of revenue. I will tell you this, that we're probably going to look at under every rock that we have. I know the finance director or finance chairman in the House of Representatives, he's looking outside of the gas tax, he's looking for other sources of revenue. Representative Sparks, your wife probably won't like this, but your finance chairman is looking at the service industry, from beauty shops, nail salons. None of those pay tax. And you've seen the number of nail salons that have exploded. It used to be 2 or 3 in Murfreesboro, now they're everywhere, kind of like payday loans. They don't pay a tax. So that service industry, I think Chairman Sargent estimates somewhere in the $65 to $75 million range of new revenue that could be brought in for a small tax to be added to that service industry. And then you get into the politics of putting a tax on attorneys. You know, that's another industry that's not taxed. You know, those are all issues that we have to look at.
I like the tax on lawyers thing.
Yeah,
but
that would probably be the quickest bipartisan bill that ever passed.
Thank you. Anyone else? On behalf of the steering, go ahead, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, let me conclude by saying one thing on behalf of our delegation. Thank you again for allowing us to come. But there was one issue that I'd like to bring before you, the steering committee, and it's an issue that kind of goes back to what Commissioner Phillips talked about. You know, as I said previously, we don't have a state income tax, so we're always trying to hold the bit in the horse, in the horse's mouth. We're pulling back all the time because it's growing in spite of ourselves with growth and all the other needs that we have, and so we can't go to the till and increase taxes. So we have to manage it much better. As in counties and cities, you're having to increase your budgets. You know, back when I was on the county commission back in the 90s, we often talked about, wouldn't it be nice if we could charge at the time of closing when a person buys a house that we get our fair share instead of waiting 13 months in arrears if we had the money up front. But that's not going to happen. But with all this growth, we're blessed in Rutherford County to be where we are. So it's tough managing it, but that's why we have good elected officials. In the city, the county, and all of our municipalities. Eagleville's getting ready to bust wide open. We got that sewer finally in out there. It's that end of the county is going to bust wide open. But along with all the good things that happen, there are a lot of tough things that happen. And probably you've noticed a couple of articles in the newspaper just recently about prostitution. One thing that I want to talk about, and something that really bothers me, and I hope that your safety committee will work with the sheriff's department. I have told Director Gwynn at the TBI that if the governor doesn't put the money into his budget, that I'm willing to introduce an amendment to the budget to give him 4 new officers to work across our state. Human trafficking is a scourge that is upon our state like no other right now. And it's coming from 2 different directions. One is from the rural counties. We have 76 out of 95 counties that is experiencing human trafficking. We are currently ranked 3rd in the country. People are just flabbergasted that human trafficking is that prevalent in our state. But if you look at Interstate 40, it comes straight in from Arizona, so there's a pipeline that brings them in. The 2 areas of human trafficking, one in the more rural areas like a Lake County, the more rural it is, we have a lot of mothers that are prostituting their young 9, 10, 12, 13-year-old daughters so they can get money to buy meth. The other segment of human trafficking is coming in from the 7 Mexican cartels that are operating within our state. So I hope that the Public Safety Committee and the County Commission will work with the County Commission. I don't want that, we rank very high in all the accolades that we brag about in Tennessee, things that we're doing good, new jobs and manufacturing and everything we're settling in, but I don't like being number 3 in human trafficking. And that's something that's upon us and affecting the lifestyle of our state. So I wish you would help us focus on that, because that's an issue that's affecting us all. And you're seeing it every day in the paper. Just this past week, there was a mother talking about prostitution. That's all she's ever known right here in Murfreesboro. Never knew that that was going on, but it is, and we need to address that because that is part of our future as well. But thank you for allowing us to come and speak with us and us hear your concerns and issues. We invite each one of you to come down for TCCA Day on the Hill, when the County Commissioners Association will come down on the Hill sometime February. Anybody know? Probably February 1st of March, I would assume, but we invite you all down. Please come and we'll set up a short meeting if you can get the opportunity to get off work. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, and on behalf of the steering committee, we appreciate your work and dedication you have for our constituents. Any other business? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.